It was a rainy evening in London. The streets were soaked, and people rushed under their umbrellas, trying to avoid the cold, but Emma didn't mind the rain. She stood under the glass awning of the small bookstore she worked at. Watching raindrops race down the window, there was something magical about rainy days especially. When you were in love. She looked at the clock, 5:56 p.m. For more minutes. He was never late. At exactly 6 p.m., the bell above the door jingled. In walked Daniel, soaked from head to toe, without an umbrella. "You forgot it again?" She laughed, reaching for a towel from behind the counter. "I didn't forget," he said, grinning. "I like walking in the rain. Especially when I know you're waiting at the end of it." Emma rolled her eyes, blushing. Daniel always had a way with words. They had met 6 months ago, right here in the bookstore. He was looking for a book on astronomy. And she had recommended her favorite, Stardust. They talked for hours that day, and ever since. He came by every evening, sometimes to buy a book, but mostly to see her. They sat in their usual corner now, surrounded by shelves and the smell of old paper. She brought 2 cups of tea and sat across from him. "So," he said, sipping, "I've been thinking." "Oh," she smiled. "That sounds serious." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. "Remember when we wrote each other letters for that bookstore event, but didn't open them?" Emma nodded. "The letters to future lovers thing, yeah. I opened mine yesterday." He unfolded it and began to read softly. "Dear future love, I hope you make me laugh every day. I hope you challenge me to dream bigger, read more, and believe in magic. I hope you walk with me through the rain and never complain about getting wet. I hope I find you when I'm not even looking." She looked at him, stunned. "You wrote that?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "I never thought you'd actually read it." "I did," he said gently, "and I realized you described me." There was a long pause. The only sound was the soft tapping of the rain outside. Then Daniel stood up, reached into his coat, and pulled out a tiny box. "Emma," he said, his voice slightly shaking, "I don't want to spend one more day without knowing you're mine." He opened the box. Inside was a silver necklace with a tiny star pendant. "This isn't a proposal, not yet, but it's a promise that one day, when the time is right, I will ask you to marry me. Until then, will you be my always?" Emma's eyes filled with tears. She took the necklace with trembling hands and nodded. "Yes," she whispered. 1,000,000 times, yes. Outside, the rain continued to fall. But inside the little bookstore, 2 hearts had found shelter in each other. A year had passed since that rainy evening in the bookstore. Life had changed, but their love had only grown stronger. Emma had left the bookstore to pursue her dream of writing. Daniel, now working as a full-time photographer, often travelled for assignments, but he never missed their Friday night tradition, dinner under the stars on the bookstore's rooftop. One evening in early spring, Daniel texted her, "Meet me at the rooftop. Wear something warm. Don't ask questions. Just trust me, curious." Emma wrapped herself in her favorite sweater and made her way to the bookstore. As she climbed the familiar stairwell, she noticed fairy lights hanging from the rails. The door to the rooftop was slightly open, and the sound of soft music floated out with the breeze. She stepped outside and gasped. The rooftop was transformed. There were candles everywhere, a blanket laid out with her favorite takeout, and a telescope aimed toward the sky. But what caught her breath the most was Daniel, standing there in a suit, holding a small notebook. "Hey, Stargirl," he said softly, using the nickname he'd given her long ago. Emma walked toward him, heart pounding. "What is all this?" He opened the notebook. "I wanted to show you something." He read aloud, "First star I saw with you, Jupiter. First night I told you I loved you, under a meteor shower. First moment I realized I couldn't live without you, the day I read your letter in the rain. He closed the book and looked at her. I've spent the last 12 months capturing stars through my lens, but none of them shine like you. So I talked to your favorite author. He handed her a copy of Stardust, but this one had her name printed under the title, Stardust, by Emma Collins. Her eyes widened. You how? You're published, he said. I submitted your short story. And they loved it. She burst into tears. And now, he added, getting down on one knee, there's one more thing I'd like to capture forever. He opened a velvet box, this time holding a delicate ring with a tiny sapphire shaped like a falling star. Emma Collins, will you marry me and spend every rainy day and starry night with me for the rest of our lives? Emma didn't hesitate. Yes, she cried, laughing through her tears, forever and always. As they kissed beneath a sky full of stars, a soft drizzle began to fall just like the night they first fell in love. Only this time, they didn't seek shelter, they danced in the rain. The wedding was small but magical. They married under a wooden arch wrapped in ivy and fairy lights, in the backyard of Emma's childhood home. It rained, of course, softly. Like a blessing, and no one cared. Guests laughed under umbrellas, barefoot on the wet grass. While Emma and Daniel said I do with joy in their eyes and water on their cheeks. I always knew you'd walk me down the aisle in the rain, Emma whispered as they kissed. Their honeymoon wasn't lavish. They took a train through the English countryside, stopping in quiet towns, reading books on benches, and taking pictures of wild flowers. It was exactly the kind of love they had, gentle, slow, and filled with meaning. Months passed, and they moved into a little cottage by a lake. It had creaky floorboards, a fireplace that smoked sometimes, and a small room they turned into a library. Daniel called it the heart room. Emma called it home. Every Sunday, Daniel made pancakes. Every Thursday, Emma read him chapters from the novel she was working on. They didn't need much, just tea, books, laughter, and each other. Then, one rainy evening years later, Emma stood by the same window she once had in the bookstore, watching the raindrops race down the glass behind her. Daniel came up and wrapped his arms around her belly. Where their baby was growing, she's kicking again, Emma smiled. Guiding his hand, Daniel knelt down, kissed her belly, and whispered, You've already got your mama's spirit. He stood and kissed Emma's forehead. Do you remember the first time I walked into that bookstore? Of course, she said. You were dripping wet and forgot your umbrella. I didn't forget. He grinned. The same grin he had all those years ago. I was just running toward my future. Emma smiled. Through tears. As thunder rolled gently in the distance and the rain played its soft song on the roof, they stood together to souls, now three wrapped in a love that had grown through pages, storms, stars. And time, love, real love, doesn't fade, it deepens, it roots, and like the rain, it always finds its way home, the end.